Well, good morning, everyone. It is dark and early, and the skies are mostly clear right now. Just a couple clouds here and there, not all that much. Got my breakfast cooling down a little bit, and the wind is kicking up from time to time. I'm sure it's probably blowing some leaves off some of the trees, but that will create some opportunities on the ground. But I'm really hoping I have the opportunity to expose some film today on those two scenes I found yesterday. I figured I'd take this as an opportunity to talk about how the trip is going so far. So at this point in time, the two scenes I photographed, I have next to zero confidence in. So from that standpoint, I kind of feel like I'm starting fresh every single day, trying to find that first photo I actually feel a pretty good connection to. It'd be great if those photos turn out, but I just kind of assume that they won't. And the color is so good right now, but at the same time, it's hard to work with because when the leaves are all in the trees, sometimes it can be a little tough. It's when they start hitting the ground that there's a lot more possibilities. So the wind today might start causing a little bit of that to happen. But I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully setting up for those two scenes, exposing some film, and to the point where I start feeling pretty good about this trip and kind of how things are going. But the wind is really kicking up right now. Just love that sound of the wind going through the pine trees. But I'm gonna enjoy my breakfast and then kill a little bit of time, then head down the washes and see what I could find. So I hiked down into the washes, and what's pretty crazy is that things have changed quite a bit since yesterday. There are now some beautiful leaves on the ground. Even this same tree that I walked past yesterday, I think it had quite a bit more green on it. So things are really picking up the pace as far as this change in fall color. So I'm really hoping that the tree that I plan to shoot today is still gonna have leaves on it, and that they're gonna be somewhat similar to yesterday. But if for some reason that doesn't work out, I already found a really cool area with some really nice fallen maple leaves surrounded by some rocks, which is something I've been wanting to photograph for many years now. Let's go check out that tree and see if it's still looking pretty good. So as I make my way to my potential morning location, I've been thinking a little bit about patience. Now, patience is one of the most important attributes you can have as a landscape photographer. Yesterday was a little bit of a challenging day. I mean, to find two really nice subjects, but just knowing that the light was it wasn't there. And I think that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about shooting film, because I know that if the light just isn't absolutely ideal, the shot just isn't going to turn out quite as nice as I'd like. So in that sense, shooting film has sort of forced me to have a sense of patience that I might not otherwise have. And there'll be days when things just don't go as according to plan. Things don't work out quite nice. But if you're really patient, you give it some time, things will eventually work out. So at least I'm hoping that's what's going to happen today. And I'm hoping that tree is going to have its leaves. Well, I've arrived at the tree that I scouted out yesterday, and it's looking pretty decent. I mean, the leaves really didn't fall off overnight, just a few of them. But what I have noticed is that it's changed color a little bit. So the lower branches were a bit more green yesterday, and now they're more of kind of a yellowy green. And I actually really liked it when they were green down there, because I think, gave it even better variety of color. It also seems like the color might be a little less saturated through the whole tree. I was looking back at some of the scouting photos I shot yesterday, and it did seem as though yesterday was a little bit more colorful, but it's still looking quite nice today. But the skies are completely blue right now. The wind has calmed down, And what I'm waiting for now is wait for the sun to peak up. The sun's basically rising from that direction over there. And there's some big sandstone formations back behind the trees over there. I'm waiting for the sun to hit those so it bounces a little bit more, kind of a warm light down into the canyon here. It's not gonna be a strong glow. It's not really gonna be much of a glow, but just something to cancel out some of the blues. So I've got some time to kill, probably about an hour or so, but I'll just keep fine tuning the composition. And that's the other thing. I like to set up a composition, kind of walk away from it, come back again, and then kind of see things with some fresh eyes. So I'm gonna go check out the composition and see if it still looks pretty good or if I should fine tune things a little bit. So I went for a little bit of a wander just to kind of check out the nearby area. And my camera's been sitting here for about an hour now. And I've come back to it a couple times to kind of fine tune the composition. And now the light is getting a little bit better. When I first got here, it was kind of a cooler light down in the canyon. But now it's starting to warm up a little bit. It's never gonna be like a really warm, glowing light, but I think it'll be a little bit nicer in maybe a half hour or so. So I've been sort of fine-tuning the composition, I've been fine-tuning the focus, and when I check the focus, I use a loop so I can kind of look in there, magnify it, make sure everything is how it should be. And I just had something happen here for the first time, and it was quite the experience. So as I'm looking through the loop at the ground glass, a giant monster tries to attack my eyeball. There was a spider inside this end of the loop, and it was magnified. As I looked through there, yeah, I had my heart going there a little bit. I'm cool with snakes. I like snakes, but not a fan of spiders. And when there's a spider in your face and you don't know where it is, yeah, that's something to remember. And hopefully that's the last time. So the light's getting better. The wind is nice and calm. So let's hope it stays that way. And hopefully we'll be clicking the shutter here pretty soon. All right, so the wind is calm. The light's pretty darn good right now. It's just kind of a warm sort of glow. I mean, it's really, really subtle, but it'll kind of take away some of the blue tone a little bit. And so I'm gonna do 2 exposures. I'm going to expose one sheet of film at 12 seconds and then the other at 15 seconds because I'm kind of in between the 2 exposures. I'm not quite sure which one's gonna be best, but let's start with the 15-second long exposure. Just like that. Good light, calm conditions, and a beautiful tree. That's a great way to start the day. Well, I'm glad that really worked out quite well. The light cooperated, kind of a subtle warm glow. And I exposed those 2 sheets of Velvia 50, one at 12 seconds, one at 15 seconds, both at f/45. And conditions are great. Calm wind and not a single cloud in the sky. So now I'm gonna head back to an area where I was this morning where I saw some really cool leaves on the ground kind of surrounding all these rocks and stuff, and see if the light's pretty good on that, and hopefully it'll be shootable because I'd love to shoot a second subject today. And I still got my afternoon shot too, so today is off to a great start. So after filming that last clip, I hustled over to the area that I hiked through this morning. If you look back behind me here, you see all these nice big white rocks surrounded by these freshly fallen red maple leaves. And the cool thing is that these leaves were not there yesterday. I mean, they blew off overnight, so it shows how fast this fall color is turning. So I used my normal lens and shooting a horizontal composition just of the area just with the rocks with the leaves between them down there. And I was kind of hurrying a little bit because the light that I'm in, I think I'm going to be in shade for a while, but I'm right on the very edge of the sun. It's going to be blown out, but if you look back behind me over there, you see that I'm right on the edge of where all the sunlight is. And I think I'll be under here for a little bit while longer though. So I might kind of continue with some other compositions and see what else I can find over here. I will have to run back to my truck though, because I shot all my Velvia, and Velvias are really well suited for this kind of light. But yeah, that's cool. 2 scenes, 1 day, 4 sheets of film exposed. That's what happens when you've got blue skies in Zion. So this is another scene I found. I actually hiked through here this morning. But now there's a really nice glow in the background. The tree's got some really nice color to it. So I set up a composition, vertical, showing some of the rocks there in the foreground. Trees that are kind of tucked behind the sandstone, and this big nice wall in the background with the really nice reflected light on it. I'm going to expose this on Kodak Ektar, which is color negative film, because it's pretty bright up high and fairly dark down low. Just gotta wait for a nice little break in the wind here. So as I'm waiting for the wind to calm down, it's pretty good though. They're still moving just a tiny little bit. Fair to talk a little bit about large format and some of the limitations that come with it for a scene like this. So I really like a vertical composition here because we have some nice foreground elements. Obviously the tree is the star of the show, and you have this really nice wall in the background. But depth of field is really tricky. I'm using a 240mm lens, which is equivalent to about a 35mm in terms of full frame. And at f45, I mean, if I focus on the trees, I'm not really gonna get, perfect focus in the foreground rocks. But for me, the tree is important, the background wall is important, because you need to be able to sort of explore this photo with your eyes. So I use just a tiny, tiny bit of front tilt to give the foreground just a fighting chance of having some sharpness. But really, I'm gonna make sure that tree and the back wall are sharp. So I'm hoping that the strategic move of sacrificing a little bit of sharpness up front won't come around and haunt me later on. But if I try to get that sharp, I'm gonna lose some sharpness on the tree. So depth of field can definitely be an issue on large format, but let's hope that these decisions make sense. Totally meant to do that. All right, 4 seconds at 45. Just like that. So after taking that last photo, I went ahead and moved my camera about 10 feet because I found something else that's a pretty cool subject. So if you look over my shoulder there, you'll see the scene that you just saw me photograph. But if I spin you around here, check this out. So these maples are really, really, really just prime color right now. A good mixture of colors, some sort of pinks and oranges and greens. Some nice rocks here in the foreground. And I went ahead and exposed a sheet of Provia as well as 2 sheets of Velvia. So it's all color slide film. And I did fry 1 sheet of Provia in the process because I was kind of rushing a little bit. Because if I spin you around all the way over here, you'll see that there's some direct sunlight just over my shoulder there that is very, very quickly here going to creep into view. So that's one of the things about working in these washes. You definitely have to keep an eye on where the sun's moving and figure out when the best time will be to shoot some of these subjects. But use a 240mm lens, just framed it here with these rocks here in the foreground, all the way up to those branches and some nice reflected light. That is Zion perfection. So I just finished packing up all my gear, and now it's time to head back to my truck because there is one more photo I want to potentially shoot today. And I got some more film holders back there. So let's see if I can find a composition on that, because if I can, there's gonna be a pretty awesome day here in Zion. So I've reached my 5th and final subject for the day, which is pretty awesome. It's not too often I get that sort of productivity here in Zion. But I got my camera set up there, and you see back behind me, I have this really cool scene with these maples down along the wash. The wash itself has some really nice light tones to it, and then the sandstone kind of on the edge of it, so more of the sort of the tan sort of color of the sandstone here. Then off in the background, there's these 3 pine trees growing at some kind of fun angles, and the wall in the background's got some nice desert varnish and some reflected light. So the light source, if I spin you guys around, you see back over there, those large sandstone areas, those are catching some direct sunlight and reflecting it down into the canyon, right there into the shot. So pretty cool that I was able to find this, and so wind's pretty calm right now, so I should probably expose some film. All right, this is gonna be 5 seconds, F45. Hoping for no wind. So I exposed a couple sheets of Ectar, a couple sheets of Provia, and also 2 sheets of Velvia on that scene. It'll be interesting to compare them and see how they all turned out. But today, man, today was a crazy day. 5 different scenes, and also just very different scenes as well. From stuff on the ground to some kind of larger scenes. And I really don't know what to expect from them, but I figure there's gotta be something decent in those. And this is the sort of Zion that I love, when you can just find really cool things around each corner. And literally 3 of those shots today were around the exact same corner, which is kind of cool. But now it's time to head back to camp, get myself some dinner, and I gotta load a lot of film tonight. I am not looking forward to that, but I am looking forward to dinner. So I thank everyone for watching. We'll see you around next time. Of the 5 scenes I photographed that day, there are 2 photos that earned a spot in my portfolio, but it wasn't the first scene with a maple tree set against the canyon wall. Though the composition works well enough, the tree seems a bit out of place, as though it's obscuring something more important behind it. Perhaps my opinion of this photo will change with time, but it isn't quite what I had in mind. I wish I had more time to work with the second scene. Harsh direct sunlight was advancing quickly, so I made some hasty decisions. I liked the rock in the upper left and tried to use it to anchor the composition, but the photo falls short on the right side. I do wish there was either a more dominant subject, or that the rocks and leaves were more consistent in a way that formed a cohesive pattern. The photo of the yellow tree on color negative film also didn't make the cut. The exposure and composition are fine, but I just don't like the overall feel of the photo. Here's how it looks when scanned and edited in Photoshop. The depth of field's a bit shallow, but the most important parts are in focus. This is another one of those photos where my perception may very well change with time. It was the final 2 photos that earned a spot in my portfolio. The scene with the colorful maple set against the rocks is one of my favorites from the entire trip. I love the contrast in color and texture between the rocks and the leaves. It's chaotic, yet organized, and delicate, yet strong. This photo very much captures the feeling of walking through the washes, and exploring the film with a loupe is a feast for the eyes. I shot this scene on both Velvia and Provia, but I very much prefer the softer color and contrast of Provia. I'm also quite satisfied with the final photo. It's a scene I've walked past countless times through the years, but it was only on this trip that I realized the full potential of this location. I shot the scene on Velvia, Provia, and Ectar, and prefer the rendering of Velvia. Overall, this was one of my most productive days in Zion. I exposed a total of 15 sheets of film on 5 different subjects. And although the first few weren't quite to my liking, they serve as mere footsteps along a path that led to some photos I truly am satisfied with. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you around next week. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints and my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.